I have a lot to talk about with this movie, so there are going to be spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, come back and watch this after you've watched the movie. Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. Long anticipated live action Aladdin. Yeah. As you can probably tell, that's how I feel about this movie. I was hesitant going into this because I have not liked most of, if any, of the Disney live action remakes so far, and Aladdin is like my absolute favorite. Like, I love the original Aladdin so much. It is my favorite Disney animated movie of all time. So I was very skeptical going into this that they would do it the way I would have seen it, but I also was just like, I don't know if I want a live action remake of this because the original is so great. But also with the live action remake, we still have this animated version. I had heard some great things about it as well from early reviews, so I was like, going in a little hopeful, maybe. And before I really get into all of this, I did have some predictions for what I thought would happen in my review of the original Aladdin. Check it out up there. I do feel like I predicted a lot of things, like the fact that this is basically not a shot-for-shot remake the way Beauty and the Beast was, but very close to being the exact same as the original with a couple extra songs that didn't necessarily need to be there. Before I really dig into the parts of this that kind of bothered me a lot, let's talk about the actors. Will Smith is the big one because Robin Williams' Genie is... I love him so much. So Will Smith had big shoes to fill. I also really do love Will Smith because Men in Black is one of my favorite movies. I was like, if anybody could do it, it could be Will Smith. And there were parts where Will Smith was really okay. I was like, Will Smith, you're doing great. You're surpassing my expectations for your part in this. But there were also parts where I did not like him. Like when he was singing, like actually singing and not like rapping. It was, although the Prince Ali bit, up until this one particular point where they stop the entire parade, they just like stop it and wait, and he keeps calling back to the Sultan to like tap his hand, and they're gonna stop and keep going once he tapped his hand. I'm like, oh my god, why do you have to add that? It's so dumb. It wasn't necessary, and then it just gets really weird after that. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that, even though, like, I did like most of Prince Ali up until that point. And I was kind of digging, you know, You've Never Had a Friend Like Me, but at the same time I wasn't, because it was, like, I did not like Will Smith singing. The rapping part of it was okay. And then there were new parts that he added. Some of the new parts that he added to the character I thought were really funny and really great. But there were times when he was trying to be Robin Williams, especially during You've Never Had a Friend Like Me, that just did not work. And every time he was like, itty bitty living space, he went like, yeah, you should have just left some of that for Robin Williams. And then Naomi Scott, who played Kimberly in the new Power Rangers movie, she was really good. I liked her. There were some things that I'll get into with Jasmine's character later on that I wasn't too happy with, but I did really, really love her performance. She is a great actress. I'm glad that they picked her to play this part. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the guy who played Jafar. I talked about this in my trailer reaction. I talked about this in my predictions for this movie. I did not like Jafar at all. Like, yeah, he is a sinister character. The guy played him very sinisterly, but he's also too good looking to be Jafar. And he wasn't slimy enough to be Jafar. Like, it felt weird. It felt weird that he wasn't just like being super creepy and slimy, and he was like Aladdin. He even says that, like, I used to be like you, I used to be a thief, and then I thought bigger, and I was like, no, that doesn't work very well for me. Like, it did not work. Jafar, the way he is so creepy and slimy, it just makes his character even more evil, and you want to dislike him even more for that. The next actor I want to talk about is Mina Moussaoud, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who played Aladdin. This casting was probably my favorite by far. I have not seen him in anything. I looked up his IMDb. He's done a lot of like TV shows. He was perfect for this role. Like, besides the fact that Steve from Full House voiced the original Aladdin, who is like the whitest white boy ever, this is exactly how I had pictured Aladdin to be, and he sounds and just looks, everything about him is Aladdin, and I was very, very happy about that. They did an excellent, like, perfect job casting Aladdin. It's probably my favorite part of this movie because, honestly, I had a crush on the original cartoon Aladdin when I was a little girl, because everyone always has their first crush on an animated character, and I still have a crush on Aladdin in this live action movie. Mina Massad's dimples are amazing. Yeah, that's about as much as I'll say about that, because, you know, guys like to objectify girls in movies, so why not the girls objectify the guys in movies? And then finally, the character I have the most issue with in this movie, even though I absolutely love the actress, is Nasim Pedrad's servant handmaiden character. Guy Ritchie co-wrote this script, and Guy Ritchie put this character in here to make it a stupid rom-com with the genie, but also to just completely break the Bechdel test on this. And I lost my mind. I love Nasim Pedrad. She was one of my favorite cast members when she was on Saturday Night Live. She's hilarious. She's a great actress, and I will credit her for being hilarious and great in this movie. But the purpose of her character in this movie is pretty much for Jasmine to talk about Aladdin or Prince Ali with. She talks a little bit about wanting to run away, and she talks a little bit about wanting to run Agrabah with her. But Nasim Pedrad's character is really just there to talk about Aladdin / Ali, and then fall in love with the genie. And I hate that. I hate that. In the movie, she talks to Raja. She talks to the birds. And that's another issue I have that I'll get into in a second, is a lot of the stuff with Jasmine's character, because that's a big part of the original movie that I really, really liked. You don't need to put this other character in there for no damn reason. No. So before I get into even more of a rant about that kind of stuff, I do want to break this up a little bit with some of the things that I actually enjoyed about this movie, besides the perfect casting for the titular character. The thing that I really, really loved about this movie, though, is how dedicated it was and how true it was, or it seems. I am not a cultural expert, but to me, it seems very much like they paid homage to Indian and Middle Eastern culture throughout this, with the dress and the dance and the music. And I thought that was perfect, because we don't get that representation in a lot of films, except for in Bollywood films, but a lot of Americans don't really watch those. So it was really great to see that influence put into a really big Hollywood production, especially one from pretty much the overlords of the entertainment industry right now. There's also some really great Bollywood influence in traditional Indian dances in this that I really loved. I had a couple of friends who were on, don't remember the particular style of dance that they did, but when we were in college, they were on a dance team and they did very traditional dances, and they were super, super cool. I loved the outfits that they wore and the way their jewelry and the beading and stuff on their clothing jingled when they danced, and it was so pretty and beautiful. And that scene was a really great scene, even though like part of it is a scene, part of the scene I really dislike, and then most of the scene with the dance is so fun and beautiful. And that's something I do give this credit for, and the fact that they had Guy Ritchie direct these scenes is kind of why they had Guy Ritchie be the director for this, because they have these beautiful flashy dance and music numbers that I think really only Guy Ritchie could do. Even though I'm not a huge Guy Ritchie fan, I don't think I've seen any of his movies, then that means I couldn't really be a Guy Ritchie fan or non-fan. But I know Guy Ritchie is known for doing these kind of productions, and it's really great that they got somebody who knows how to put on a big musical number like this in this way. So there are a couple things that I want to talk about that I really did not enjoy. First one is very quick. It's mostly just the way they do. I don't necessarily, I should know what it's called, but I've never been a camera person or like been very good with like the cinematography aspect. I think it's the frame rate, but I probably am wrong. I feel like I am definitely wrong on that. But there is a scene in the opening Street Rat song that like Jasmine and Aladdin are like kind of running / walking down an alleyway, and their feet are going fast, like they're going faster and everything else around them is slowing down. And they did that a couple times and it just felt very out of place for me. Did not like it. And there was also a bunch of random slow-mo and then speed up and then slow again and then normal speed. And I just, stylistically, it did not work for me. It's either you do it not at all or you do it a lot more than just one random time in the movie for both of those types of things. And then finally, the thing that I'm going to be talking the most about, and there's some other stuff that I have in my notes that I don't really have the energy to talk about after talking about this little portion with Jasmine, but if you want to know all my thoughts on some of these other things, my notes will be up on my Patreon tomorrow, so if you want to check those out, they will be up on my Patreon. Link is up there or in the description. But let's talk about Jasmine's character. The reason I love Jasmine so much, after Robin Williams, she was my favorite character in Aladdin because she had this beautiful tiger. I always wanted a tiger. And she was a very strong, independent woman who knew exactly what she wanted. And she wanted to get out of her confinement and get out of the palace. And that is something that from a very young age I really identified with, because I grew up in a small Midwest town and all I wanted to do since I was 10 years old was move out to Los Angeles. I finally did that. That is something that I really admired about Jasmine. And the way they set that up in the animated movie is just so brilliantly well done, because you see her just really disgusted with all of the princes that her father keeps trotting through the palace. You don't see her disgust as much. She feels more annoyed in the live action version than she is disgusted with the fact that she has to be married to a prince to run the kingdom, to really just take over. And you don't get that sense, at least I didn't get that sense from the live action version like I did from the animated version. You also don't feel, you don't get the sense that she feels as trapped within the confines of the palace in the live action movie like you do in the original animated version, because you're first introduced to Jasmine when she has already escaped the palace and she is already on the streets of Agrabah. You don't get her talking to the birds and the symbolism of her putting the bird back in the cage but then running back and opening it up and freeing all of the birds. And you don't get to see her escaping and Raja helping her escape, because that's really like her really close friend. But you do get to see her handmaiden play wing woman when Ali comes, well, I guess not even that. When Aladdin comes to return her bracelet, you get to see her play wing woman, and it's just, they do kind of the role reversal for a little bit where Jasmine pretends to be the servant, and it did not fit for me. I don't know, there's just something about having that friend in there that I did not like and just threw everything off for me. But a lot of what Jafar is really interested in is taking over not just the kingdom, but like the entire world, that whole think bigger thing that he has with Aladdin. But he also pushes a lot more towards war and her marrying these other princes to take over their countries and bring their armies in to help take over other lands. It did not feel right to me. I just liked the fact that the original was all about Jasmine wanting to take over, not necessarily wanting a prince. She just happened to fall in love with Aladdin when she escaped the palace and met him. This one you don't get that sense because it is playing out more like a romantic comedy musical. You don't get the sense at all that she wants to be independent and she wants to run Agrabah on her own. They talk about it in that way, but they don't necessarily do anything about it or push that agenda as hard as they probably could. But I think that just about wraps up my rant on Aladdin. So my rewatch score for this is very difficult because it is a fun movie, and while I did not have a lot of positive things to say about it, it is one of the better live action remakes that I have seen. I probably would watch it again. Definitely would not purchase it. Maybe I would watch it on Netflix. I'll give it a Netflix because I probably would watch it again if there's nothing else to do. I don't think I would ever rewatch, and I have not rewatched Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, even though I do own the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast, mostly because Emma Watson is in it, and I think I've only watched Cinderella once, so there's that. I probably would maybe rewatch this one more often than I would the other ones. Like, rating wise, I would give this like a 2 or 2.5. It's really, I did not enjoy it, even though I did enjoy it. It's a movie, but for the no context question, if you've gotten this far, if you watch my videos this far, every single time you should know what that is. I'm not going to explain it every single time. Let me know your favorite Disney animated movie. But also let me know your thoughts on Aladdin in the comments down below. Did you like it better than the original animated movie? Did you like it less? Let me know. I'm curious to see what people thought, because I've heard a lot of people actually do like this. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate every single one of you. Let me know here in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I love talking about movies, TV shows, filmmaking, history, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!